Chapter 2 Wilbur. Fern loved Wilbur more than anything. She loved to stroke it, to feed him, to put him to bed. Every morning, as soon as she got up, she warmed his milk, tied his bib on, and held a baby bottle for him. Every afternoon, when the school bus stopped in front of her house, she jumped out and ran to the kitchen to fix another bottle for him. She fed him against the supper time and against just before going to bed. Mrs. Erble gave him a feeding around noontime each day. When Fern was always in school, Wilbur loved his milk. And he is never happier than when Fern was warming up a bottle for him. He would stand up and gaze up at her with adoring eyes. For the first few days of his life, Wilbur was alone to live in a box near a stove in the kitchen. When Mrs. Erble complained, he was moved to the bigger box to the woodshed. At 2 weeks of age, he was moved outdoors. It was apple blossom time, and the days were getting warmer. Mr. Erble fixed a small yard specially for Wilbur under the apple tree, and gave him a large wooden box full of straw, with a doorway cut into so he could work out of he pleased. Wouldn't it be cold at night? Asked Fern. No, said his father. You watch and see what he does. Carried a big bottle of milk. Fern sat under the apple tree inside the yard. Wilbur ran to her and she held the bottle for him while he sucked. When he had finished the last drop, he grunted and walked sleepily into the box. Fern peered through the door. Wilbur was poking a straw with his snout. In a short time, he had dug a tunnel in the straw. He crawled into a tunnel and disappeared from the sight, completely covered with straw. Fern was enchanted. It relieved her mind to know that her baby would sleep covered up and would stay warm. Every morning after breakfast, Wilbur walked out to the road with Fern and waited with her until the bus came. She would wave goodbye for him. He would stand and watch the bus until it vanished around a turn. While Fern was in the school, Wilbur was shut up inside his yard. But as soon as she got up to home in the afternoon, she would take him out of his wood, followed him around the place. If she went into the house, Wilbur went too. If she went upstairs, Wilbur would wait at the bottom steps until she came down again. If she took her doll for the work of the doll carriage, Wilbur followed along. Sometimes of these journeys, Wilbur would get tired, and Fern would pick him up and put him in the carriage alongside the doll. He liked this. He was very tired. He would close his eyes to get sleep under the doll's blanket. He looked cute when his eyes were closed because his lash was so long. The doll would close her eyes too. When Fern was wheeled, carried slowly and smoothly, so not as her rate an infant. One warm afternoon, Fern and Avery got down into the brook for a swim. Wilbur tagged along the Fern's heel. Then she waded into a brook. Wilbur waded into with her. He found a quiet water quite cold, too cold for his liking. So while the children warmed and played in to splash on water and each other, Wilbur immersed himself into the mud along the edge of the brook, where the warm was most delightfully stiff and oozy. Every day was a happy day, and every night was peaceful. Wilbur, with that farmers called into Spring Pig, which simply means that it's born in springtime. When he was 5 weeks old, Mr. Arable said he was big enough to sell. He would have to be sold. Fern broke down the whip, but her father was frightened about it. Wilbur's attired in increased seed at the beginning to eat scraps of food in addition to milk. Mr. Arable was not willing to prove him any longer, and he had already sold Wilbur's 10 brothers and sisters. "You've got to go, Fern," he said. "You have had your fun raising a baby pig, but Wilbur is not a baby any longer, and he has got to be sold." "Call up the Zuckermans," suggested Mrs. Arable to Fern. "Your Uncle Homer's sometimes raising a pig, and if Wilbur goes there to live, you can walk down and road and visit him as often as you like." "How much money should I ask for him?" Fern wanted to know. "Well," said her father, "he's the rent. Tell your Uncle Homer you've got a pig you sell for $6, and see what he says." As soon as arranged, Fern phoned and got her Aunt Edith, and her Aunt Edith hollered to Uncle Homer, and Uncle Homer came into the barn and talked Fern. When he heard a piece of only $6, he said he would buy the pig. Next day, Wilbur was taken from his under the apple tree and went in to leave a manure pile of cellar of Zuckerman's barn.